David, first thing I have to ask is the mustache in the estate. Was that homegrown or was that a prosthetic?
That was real. That's the first time I've ever quite grown it out, separate from beard. In fact, like the day I got to set the day before I was supposed to start working, and I went through wardrobe, which was a revelation and really like a cue to the character for me. Dana Embry was the wardrobe supervisor. She was amazing. And then I went to the makeup trailer and I called Dean Craig, who was working on set because they were already shooting. And I said, you got to come in here because we got to figure out this facial hair. I had a full beard and mustache and I knew I wanted to trim it somehow. And I was like, I don't know, it's either going to be just a mustache or mustache and a little goatee. Like, but we got to make an executive decision here. Come on down. And we went down there and we were like seriously talking about like, what's funnier facial hair?
And you went with the mustache.
And the response I've gotten on the mustache, I can only tell me that we made the right choice.
What has the response been? How did your family react to it?
My son said, "Nice stash," but he's growing one himself. I think he's been inspired by his old man. But the young kids, they grow an ironic mustache. My mustache was very sincere.
Yes. And you mentioned that going to wardrobe was kind of a revelation for you. Can you talk about in what way?
Well, I had spoken to Dana beforehand, and when she said, "How do you see this guy?" and I said, "I see him in like $3,000 Gucci tracksuits."
Mm.
And she said, I love it. I don't have that money, And I was like, okay, let's find a couple tracksuits that might give us their, for free. And we did. We found this weird tracksuit that has like women as its insignia. I don't know if you can read it in the movie, but there's like,
yeah, they're like the mud flap girls.
Exactly. Yeah. So that took the place of like a more expensive brand. And then she just pulled some stuff and I was like, yeah. And then there was like a $5 pair of pants, those light purple ones, stuff like that. And I just said, these are great, and it was really, I've never been like an actor that's like gotten into the wardrobe of the character before. It's usually like, I concern myself with other things, but maybe it's going to change the way I work. Cause I was like, oh, as soon as I got these clothes, I was like, oh, I get this guy now. Like it all kind of like fell into place, which is really lucky because it was the day before we were shooting.
So tell me a little bit about what drew you to the role.
Well, I mean, it reminded me a little bit of Californication in that this was a role where, you had a truth teller in a way, even though his truth is ridiculous and vile. And I really love unapologetic characters. They're hard to find. You can find them in comedies sometimes, but in life, in a drama, you can't really. An unapologetic character is hard to find in a drama. Maybe like There Will Be Blood or movies like that. They're few and far between because they're horrific if they're not treated, comedically. But if I can find one, I kind of try to embrace that. And I think I understand what it means to be funny in that vein. I think it's probably why I responded to Californication back in the day as like, okay, this is a guy that says what's on his mind and doesn't care about the consequences. And Richard is different in that he says what's on his mind because he doesn't even understand the consequences.
So was it difficult for you to play kind of a creepy, lecherous character, or was it fun getting to kind of step into someone who I assume that you are not like as a human being?
Thank you for the assumption. I think that the answer to that would be sure, but like the trick for me as an actor is and it's been cliche, and it's become a bit of a cliche now, is that that guy doesn't think of himself as lecherous or anything, That guy
Mhm.
just thinks of himself as that guy, and he's got his wants and desires, and the rest of the world be damned. He's just kind of a fun narcissist. And when you get to play a narcissist in a comedy, you don't deal with the wreckage that a real narcissist causes in life. You just get to see somebody who just loves themselves, and it's kind of contagious. And
Yeah.
I know a few benign narcissists in my life, and you just kick yourself because you're like, God, this guy's fun to hang around with, because they love everything they do. There's no self doubt, there's no nothing. And I think sometimes we like to watch that because it's so rare for most of us to not have that other voice in your head saying, "You sure about this?"
Yeah. I think I identified a little too much with Richard, which is probably not a good thing for me.
No,
But
it's fun. That's what comedy is for. It's like it turns things upside down.
yeah. Were there any bits that were too raucous or too dirty that were left on the cutting room floor?
I don't know. I mean, once you get past the scene where we're dealing with the guy with his penis out, I think I don't know what goes on the cutting room floor if that makes it in the movie. So I'm thinking.
Right.
I think one of the funniest moments that I had on set was being with Dean Craig when they were bringing him various penises, and which one. It wasn't like, let's choose the best penis. It was like, which is the funniest penis? And then we would have a discussion about what makes a penis funny or not. And it was just the most ridiculous conversation you could ever have, but very serious.
What does make a penis funny?
I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to alienate any of the penises out there, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes. So you kind of reunited with Toni Collette and Kathleen Turner on this movie. You've worked with both of them before. What was that like? Was it kind of like a homecoming, or did they not even remember you? Like,
Yeah, yeah, they didn't remember me. Um, Kathleen was fun to work with again. We kind of tread the same ground on Californication, where
Mhm.
kind of a sex farce comedy kind of stuff. And I knew she was totally game, to do this kind of stuff, and that was great. And Tony and I did Connie and Carla, but we didn't really do much together.
Mhm.
Um, I did get to, you know, we did become friendly back then, and we did work a little bit. But I'm a big fan of Tony's as an actress, so it was fun to work with a lot of good actors who all approach comedy a little differently, and to
Mhm.
be able to, like, for instance, like Kayla Monterosa to me is some kind of a weirdo genius, in that, and I'd seen her on Curb Your Enthusiasm and really had targeted her as like, oh, that person has really interesting angles, that
Mhm.
she comes from. And I'd watch her in this movie, as somebody in a scene with her, and it's just very interesting to watch somebody, you know, and I really kind of appreciate what she's doing as well.
And just switching gears a little bit, can you tell me a little bit about Kepler, your graphic novel?
Yeah,
What? How is writing a graphic novel different from writing a regular novel?
it's a lot less writing in a graphic novel. There's a lot more pictures. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm joking when I say that, but that was my experience because I'd written Kepler as kind of a first as kind of a teleplay, like I saw it as a TV series, and then started developing it towards being a graphic novel, and I soon realized how very little you can put in a graphic novel. It's very similar to writing a screenplay, actually, where the images are telling your story and not the writing. So having you know found my love of writing again in the last 6 or 7 years, and I kind of had to put that aside because it was just like, well, it's just very condensed and very it's almost like writing poetry. It has to be that condensed and has to do so much. So what I loved about writing novels as opposed to trying to write screenplays is that I could kind of relax and just expand and just write. And this was more of a screenplay feeling. To it's very much like a screenplay. I mean, it's like storyboards. It's like a screenplay with storyboards.
Cool. Well, they're telling me I have to get out. So thank you very much.
Nice
And
with that.
yeah, they were. But
Okay.
thank you very much. And I loved the movie. And you were great in it.
Thank you.